In a remote part of the countryside, far away from any bustling towns or well-lit streets, lies Blackwood Forest. This forest, dense with towering trees and thick underbrush, has long been avoided by the locals. No one who knows the stories would dare enter, not after dark, not alone. One cool autumn evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, two friends, Mike and Sarah, found themselves standing at the edge of Blackwood Forest. They were adventurous souls, thrill-seekers, laughing off the town's superstitions as they prepared to explore the forest's depths. They wandered deep into the forest, ignoring the chill that crawled up their spines. But as they ventured further, the laughter faded, replaced by an unsettling silence that seemed to devour every sound. The air grew thick, and the trees seemed to close in around them. It wasn't long before they began to feel it, the unmistakable sensation of being watched. But whenever they turned, there was nothing there, only shadows dancing between the trees. "Did you hear that?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. Mike nodded, his face pale, eyes darting nervously around them. But they pushed on, convinced it was only their imagination playing tricks. As darkness fell, the temperature dropped, and fog began to creep across the ground, clinging to their legs as they walked. Just when they considered turning back, they stumbled upon something strange. At the center of the clearing stood an ancient tree, its twisted branches stretching out like skeletal fingers. Carved into its bark were symbols, old strange symbols that neither Sarah nor Mike could recognize. They approached it cautiously, but neither dared to touch the tree. Then, from the darkness, came a sound, a soft, eerie humming. It was faint at first, barely perceptible, but it grew louder, filling the air, seeping into their bones. It sounded human, but wrong. "Let's go back," Sarah urged, her voice trembling. But before they could move, a shadow emerged from behind the tree, a figure, tall and cloaked in darkness, its face hidden beneath a hood. The figure stood still, watching them. They froze, rooted to the spot, unable to look away from the figure's empty gaze. And then, it took a step forward, moving without a sound. As it neared, they could see its eyes, dark, hollow, and filled with a hunger that seemed endless. They ran, weaving through the trees, hearts pounding, but the figure followed, gliding silently over the ground. No matter how fast they ran, they could feel its presence just behind them, never slowing, never stopping. Finally, they reached a familiar trail, breathless, gasping for air. But as they looked back, there was nothing. The figure was gone, as if it had never been there. Relieved, they staggered back to town, never speaking of what they'd seen, trying to convince themselves it was only a trick of the mind, a product of the forest's darkness. Days passed, but neither of them could shake the feeling that something had followed them, that something still watched them, even in the safety of their homes, behind locked doors. Weeks later, Sarah's disappearance shocked the entire town. She was last seen near the edge of Blackwood Forest. Mike, now frantic, returned to the forest, desperate to find her, to bring her back. But the forest had no answers to give, only silence. And then one cold night, Mike vanished too. The townspeople whispered of the curse, of the watchers that guarded Blackwood Forest, and they knew, deep in their hearts, that no one ever truly left the forest. To this day, on nights when the fog is thick and the moon is hidden, some claim to hear whispers and see shadows lurking between the trees. So if you ever find yourself near Blackwood Forest, beware, for you might just find yourself in the watchful eyes of the darkness that lies within.